JSS students, I hope you find this evening I come to you with Tears of Joy, a book written by Charles Okoth. This is a very interesting book. You can even see the eye here, and then you can see the face smiling, so that means that at some point in this book we'll have tears of joy. Have you ever had tears of joy in your life? Are they bad tears? What do you think this picture means? Alright, so today I'm just going to share a general understanding of this book from my view. And maybe once you read, you can again ask questions or talk about it. Now, when I opened this book, I saw this picture on the first page. Yeah, can you see this? The first page has this picture. Do you know who this is? Can you see the jerrycan and the tap? Now, this is a very important character in this story, and in fact, the story revolves around him and the sister. This boy is called Okoyo. Okoyo is an orphan, and currently he's working as a house help in a certain house of a teacher called Madam Aliso. Madam Aliso is a teacher who is most respected in the society. Okoyo is working for her as a house help, and you can actually see it is very early in the morning. There's no light yet. So he's gone to fetch water almost at 6 o'clock, so that now he can come back to the house and bring it to Madam Alice. People need water. Why do we need water in the morning? Possibly for preparation of meals or for bathing. And that's exactly what Okoyo is doing. Now you might wonder why Okoyo is hired by a teacher, but that's how the world is. Sometimes even people who are enlightened forget that children who are needy require education. So Okoyo is working for Madam Aliso, and he has a lot of duty. In the morning he has to fetch water, then he has to prepare breakfast, and there are specific standards Madam Aliso normally needs. He has even to make salad for her and prepare some eggs for the kids, and then he has again to prepare the two children that Madam Aliso has, a daughter and a son, so that they can go to school. Do you know the names of the children of this madam? We have Lucas, who is a boy, and we have Emily, who is a girl. Now, do you think you can manage such a task when you're just about 12 or 11 years old? It may not be possible. It's a bit difficult. But Okoyo is forced to do this because you will actually know why. Now, Okoyo is struggling with the jerrycans. Remember, there are two jerrycans, and he does not like being yelled at, something that Madame always does when she's furious. Now, he really gasps for a breath because he's carrying heavy jerrycans. Are you able to carry heavy jerrycans if you are an age of Okoyo? You may not, but sometimes when situations force, what can you do? Now, Okoyo is worried that possibly Madame will yell at him if he doesn't speed up. And indeed, he only has to smile because he remembers that when he was in school, there was once a teacher who used to talk about Lady Luck. The teacher was a short teacher but could always smile, and this makes Okoyo feel that in the world sometimes you have to smile because there is a time you might actually meet Lady Luck. This seems to be a foretelling of what might happen in the story later. Now, we see Okoyo. Now, the narrator takes us back to why Okoyo is working as a house help. So we get to the situation where Okoyo and Afandi are living with their mother in Kilimo village. It is near Moka town, and they are so happy with their mother, Hakina. Remember, they are only with their mother. Now ask me why. Okay, their father was called Muse Pasiliano, yeah? But Mzee Pasiliano had been in hospital for 14 years. Again, ask me why. The hospitalization was caused by a disease that emerged. This Mzee Pasiliano was a very brilliant teacher, and he had been teaching a local primary school. He was a beloved teacher that had really assisted the society. His career had gone to a level that he was now a head teacher, and he had helped a lot of people. He never liked to send away students from school. Now, is it good for such a good person to have a condition, an illness? And of course, we are told it is schizophrenia. Do you know schizophrenia? Schizophrenia is a mental disease that can make you actually lose yourself. You may not even now speak the way you speak normally. You might lose sleep. You might even fail to know the people you know and anything to do with your life. And you might even begin roaming and running away. At some point, you may want to kill others or kill yourself. So Mzee Pasiliano goes to this level. He begins to lose the common speech. Then he fails to know the wife and the children. And then he runs away from home. Then at some point, he comes back at home. And once the wife has given him water to bathe, then he pours hot water on himself, and that takes him to hospital. Now he spends 14 years in hospital. You can imagine how he must have left when Okoyo is very young, because he is now 14, which means he was just born when the father actually became sick. And the wife, unfortunately, is called a witch by the family of Mzee Pasiliano. Yeah, and nobody is ready to help. And immediately he's sick. There is one man that used to stay in his house, who was later recommended by Mzee Pasiliano to be a deputy. He takes over the headmanship, head teacher role, and then he forces the family to vacate from the house they were living in school. Many teachers sympathize, but they have nothing they can do. And they can only help the wife to Hakina and the children to get another house in this Kilimo village and stay. Now Hakina decides that she will have to dedicate all her time to ensure that her children have food on the table. You can imagine what a mother can do. So she opens a stall and avoids sympathy. Then she begins selling vegetables. And so she's a proud owner of a stall whereby she sells vegetables, fruits, and sometimes she even sells spices and other stuff whenever they are available. Now, we realized that at some point Mzee Pasiliano had bought a piece of land, and he had paid almost 1 million before he went sick. And the owner, having known that Mzee Pasiliano is unwell, he decided to tell the wife that Mzee Pasiliano had taken the money back, which is not right. Yeah, it is not true. But then, whenever the wife asks him, he says, you can even ask your husband. Remember, when you have such a disease, I've said you forget everything. So you can actually see what human beings are made of. Now, when you proceed in this story, you realize that Hakina is telling the children about the father, especially Okoyo, who is very young, because he never actually came to know the father, and he is at an age, yeah, when he really wants to know about the father, because he has heard people talk, refer to things about witchcraft of the father, and he also wants to understand what happened and how he can meet the father. Now he's sympathizing with the story the mother is giving, but the mother tells them we need to be strong. It is not time to mourn or cry, yeah? And by the time we are finishing this chapter 1, we realize that the mother has made a resolution that Okoyo must at least, yeah, be in a position to be told the truth. Now, chapter 2 quickly tells us that after Mzee Pasiliano was hospitalized, that his salary came in full for a few months, then half a salary, and then later on it never came at all. But Hakina decided to be dedicated and hardworking so that she could assist the kids to eat, survive, and also go to school. She understood that school was very important and kept encouraging children to work hard. That's what parents do. Do you work hard at school? That's very important for your parent. Remember that. Now, as we proceed to page 12 and 13, we notice that there is that aspect of time in the business of Hakina. There's a time when she sells potatoes, assorted fruits, and the vegetables and all that. And sometimes she had to conduct odd jobs like washing, laundry, that is, and housekeeping for the rich people, because she knew if she doesn't do that, then she will not have enough for the family. Now, she could manage the basic needs, shelter and clothing. Remember, they had rent a house, so they kept paying. Now, she always encouraged her children not to be lazy, because she told them laziness is not the best and it makes you only an envious person. Is it true that lazy people are envious? Find out and tell me. Now, we see Okoye and Afandi go to school, and sometimes when need be, they have to assist the mother in some duties. And now that the mother has decided they'll visit the father in a hospital, and he's in the city, and it is very costly. So she decides that they have to work very hard, and so she does not rest. So that time, she could go wash, and because the rich people have washing machines and they have dryers, she imagined that even rain could not stop her. So she kept working. And so one evening she came to the house and the children welcomed her. They knew that she loved boiled cassava and black tea. So they brought to the mother, hugged her, and Okoye rushed, explaining how he had really sold a lot of goods. And Afandi was there just joking with the brother. But then, Afandi is very keen. She observes that the mother is not as cheerful as such, and she is persistently coughing. She is struggling to breathe. And she also notices that the mother's skin is turning pale, and the light complexion is not as normal. That her eyes are are not as lively as such, they are dull, and her lips have cracked. What do you think was the problem with Hakina? So, she asks the mother whether she's fine, and the mother says she's fine, but she doubts. Yeah? And we see that at the end, she just collapses wherever she was sitting. And the children realize it's emergency, so Afandi sends Okoye to tell the landlord about it. Do you know the landlord? He was known as Orwako, and he was a very brutal man, unforgiving, strict. He had a heart of a stone, and he was known to throw helpless people out of his houses because he did not want to sympathize with anyone. So you can imagine a boy like Afandi in his teenage. He is sent to call this man. So he's very afraid. So as he goes, he's asking whether this man will help. So he even takes a deep breath, knocks the door. And when the man opens, he begins explaining himself, but he cannot actually come to explain clearly. There are surprises in life. So it happened that, ironically, Orwako listens, and he's very kind and understanding and says, let's go to your house. It is so surprising to Okoye, because he wonders, is this person human really? Okay, let me tell you kids, everyone has dual sides or three sides. You can be very bad, but at some point you have to be good. So as we proceed in this story, we see that the man helps the children to take Hakina to hospital because she's unconscious. And when she reaches the hospital, they put her in emergency room. Do you know emergency room? That is a room where they pick somebody who is very unwell and attend to her. So Okoye is very tensed, feeling helpless. Yeah, and he's in the hospital. He can actually see how the nurses are running around, and he really hopes that they'll help. Afandi also is doing the same. Now the doctors are really rushing, but it seems a bit late. So they begin conversing, and the kids are also, like they sense there is a problem. And so they are asking the doctors, tell us, is our mother okay? Yeah, and Okoye is sobbing and really crying, teary eyes. And the doctor is a bit of hopeful, but there's nothing you can do. When things are bad, they're just bad. So it happens that possibly Hakina dies, and they don't want to tell the children. So they are just, one of the nurses takes them to some place so that they can eat. But Okoye doesn't feel like eating. He just stares at food, the same as Afandi. Yeah? So the nurse realizes that, yeah, the children look so much like their mother. And some doctors begin to ask whether there is an adult around. They think even Orwako must be their father, but they tell the doctor the truth, that whoever brought them to hospital was just their landlord. Their father is in a mental hospital. Do you know the name of the hospital where the father is? Yeah, they mentioned Luena Mental Hospital. So then the parents know, the doctors realize what happened. At the end of this chapter, we see that the nurses just have to tell the kids the truth. So then we find the children in chapter 3 are wailing, and Okoyo faints at some point. And Okoyo has been begging the doctors to just inject the mother, help, and even pour more medicine, let him help. You know, he doesn't understand what is happening. He does not accept what has happened. Afandi understands, and she's mourning, but she's at least strong enough. So, in the act of fainting, he spends a lot of time, and the following day, he wakes up. And so Afandi is very appreciative and tells him, because he cannot remember what happened, that I thought that you had left me the same way that my mother had left. So then, the hospital takes that duty of making sure that they inform or they find out about the maternal family. And so Hakina is buried at the uncle's place, Uncle Murano. So after burial, the kids are just sitting in the grandfather's house when the Uncle Murano comes and tells them it's now time to you go away and you have to go to your father's people. And the children are wondering, because during the funeral they saw the uncle quarreling with the uncle's the father's relatives, that they had been happy that the mother is dead, that the sister, they have never helped her, that they they have blamed her for the sickness of their father. And now here he is, having promised in the funeral that he will pay fees for them and help them, and now he's betraying them, telling them to go away, and they are surprised. Where do they go? But he tells them they have to go because the mother never left anything. He had not listened to them. She doesn't have anything left. So the children just decide they have to go away, but they do not know where to go to. Yeah, they realize the harsh reality that when you are an orphan, then you cannot actually know what to do. So I'll talk to you next time about chapter 4 onwards, because I cannot bother you with the entire story. It's a long story and it has a lot of details, but I hope that you've understood what Tears of Joy is all about from chapter 1 up to the end of chapter 3. Bye bye for now. Stay tuned and read these books. They are so good. They have good vocabulary. They are so interesting.